They become such a politically important thing, in addition to whatever substantive aspects there are about the Epstein files. That is to say, was there collusion? What's involved? Was Epstein a spy? Were there powerful people involved? And so these are why the cover-up and why the about face by the current administration. And we'll ask him about that, but I wanted to touch on it here because there has been a lot here. And it's funny, Ro Khanna has actually pushed for the House to release the Epstein files. In other words, Democrats are demanding now that Republicans release the remaining Epstein files, trying to put the GOP on the spot, right? Mm-hmm. You guys said you were going to be so transparent. You said it was all about Democrats, and Democrats were literally in bed with Jeffrey Epstein, and all this bad stuff was happening with Jeffrey Epstein. It involved all these high-profile people from, Bill Clinton to large donors. Okay, let's see it. We'll actually push through an amendment. Ro Khanna is sponsoring the amendment that would force a House vote on pushing Attorney General Pam Bondi to release the remaining case files on Jeffrey Epstein. Why are the Epstein files still hidden, Ro Khanna said. Who are the rich and powerful being protected? A vote would, quote, put every Congress member on record about making the files public. So that's the first sign I've seen that the Democrats are using this politically. Meantime, the Trump position on the Epstein files, as you know, has become, nothing to see here. I don't even know why we're still talking about this. But there is now pressure from Donald Trump toward those influencers like Charlie Kirk, the big MAGA parade heads, to get off of this thing. And many of them, some high profile, like Charlie Kirk, are trying to get off of it, trying to move the conversation beyond this Epstein thing. So that's a sign, I'd say, that Trump sees how damaging this is, and on an ongoing basis, how damaging it might be. And he's trying hard to, best he can, leverage his political currency to move the conversation along. Tony, I sent you a couple of things on this that I think are pretty good. One is the last thing I just sent you. This speaks to what I just said about Trump trying to move the conversation along and the political half-life that this might have. Can you play a little bit of that? This is again, this is a New York Times reporter on this, and this kind of speaks to what I was saying. The politics of this is interesting, the Epstein files. I mean, again, leaving aside the heinous acts and the trafficking of women and all that sort of thing, but just the political impact and trying to move past it, which is what Trump is trying to do. Here's a little bit from this morning. And this
just because folks like Charlie Kirk are now saying, hey, let this go, are true believers going to do it?
So this is a moment of sincere political urgency for Trump. Back in 2021, his lead pollster, Tony Fabrizio, did a survey of the Republican electorate and found that there were a full 10% of the Republican voters who said that they believed in QAnon conspiracy theories. So the political fallout potential here is very real. That's why the White House has, and President Trump himself, have been leaning on conservative influencers like Charlie Kirk. The fact that Dinesh D'Souza, who has fanned so many outrageous lies about the stolen election, about Obama's birth certificate, he's saying back off this. That really shows you that the influencers are falling in line. That doesn't mean, however,
how does that happen?
Well, it happens because a very angry president of the United States gets on the phone and yells at you, or people from the White House really turn up the heat, which we know is exactly what's happening in this case. But that doesn't mean that the average voter, the MAGA moms and dads, are just going to forget and move on, because for years they were told elect Trump, elect MAGA Republicans, and we won't lie to you. We will get to the bottom of all of these cover-ups that have disenfranchised you, that have put these powerful people in positions to abuse their authority and to, you know, do the most egregious, unimaginable things possible, like sexually abuse children. And now they're being told just to forget it and move on. I don't think it's that simple, but as President Trump has always done, he will find somebody else to blame for this. And already you're seeing Pam Bondi being thrown under the bus. Dan Bongino is making noise. You know, I don't know that Trump is ready to fire anybody yet. That's, you know, from what I'm told, he's very concerned about even getting somebody to replace Pam Bondi, confirmed through the Senate. So we'll just see what else happens in the next few weeks.
Well, he
Very
certainly.
good. Thank you. I thought that last part was particularly instructive because that last part is what we know. We know that Trump does the dance where he'll blame somebody. Yeah. We know that politically, I would suggest, I disagree with him a bit. I think MAGA Nation can forget. They're really good at forgetting. And that's the way cults work. And again, he was sort of making a distinction that those in the cult of MAGA, they may not forget, but it's the people on the edges who feel like it's been an us versus them thing. And us now, when we get in there, we're going to be transparent. But it turns out the us is them. Everybody's them. That this government, here comes the new boss, same as the old boss type thing. And so on some level, I think they can forget, but it will be an effort to make them forget. Anyway, we'll talk more about the Epstein situation. I also have the Dershowitz stuff that I want to share with you as we continue. And we'll talk to David K. Johnston in an hour or two about that as well. It is politically seismic what's happening in the MAGA movement and the conspiracy theory QAnon adjacent crew that vaulted Trump into office. I mean, it's a big part of his constituency that expected a kind of transparency, a promise of JFK, MLK, UFOs, Epstein files. It's all coming out because those people want to suppress it, and particularly in the case of Epstein, because it's all a bunch of Democrats. The Epstein files are going to be revelations about Democrats. Here's what they're saying now. Go ahead, Tony, please.
How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation?
What I'm getting at is at some point, we want answers at some point.
Yeah, answer the questions. That's it. Who went to Epstein Islands? Who specifically went on the plane? Who stayed for more than a night?
I don't think they're telling us the truth about Epstein.
I will not rest until we go full Jan 6 committee on the Jeffrey Epstein files.
I supported Donald Trump in this last election. Yes, he did just actively cover up a giant child rapist ring.
Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of Intel Services, probably not American.
Release all the Epstein files, no matter the consequences.
There is no way that we are going to act like the proven harm and abuse that Jeffrey Epstein has caused never happened.
And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working?
If you want the full release of documents, the special prosecutor gets it, and here's why. Epstein is a key that picks the lock on so many things.
So they've created a narrative that suggests that Jeffrey Epstein, as Bannon was just saying, is sort of the linchpin to all kinds of other scandal. Now, there's nothing to see here. That's the new word from the administration. As you suggested, I mean, Bondi, Patel, Bongino, their top Justice Department and FBI officials and White House people with great gravitas and leverage with Trump, there's an internecine dispute. Speak to what's going on here politically and then just practically.
Well, the MAGA people were promised something that was made a big deal to them. For years, they were fed this story about Jeffrey Epstein. Not only is he a child rapist, but he's compromised people using presumably audio or video tapes of these people raping girls. And we know that, Donald was seen with Epstein repeatedly. He says, I met him a few times. That's the kind of lie Donald tries to get away with. So they expected to see these files. Now, their assumption has always been it's going to reveal all these terrible Democrats. I mean, just yesterday, I saw another, and it was modern, not from years ago, video about the child blood drinking, cannibal, child rapist Hillary Clinton nonsense.
Right.
So
they
a lot
shot
of
up
these
that
people
pizza
live-
place, right, in Washington,
Right, yeah.
following up on that.
Right. They're way out in space about many of these things. Trump's problem is that he promised to release these files. By the way, who was Attorney General of Florida at the time a lot of this was going on? Oh, Pam Bondi. So this is a deep division it's creating among the MAGA crowd. And it's also encouraging the really crazy comments of Tucker Carlson, because we don't have any evidence that Epstein was working on behalf of foreign governments. I haven't seen one iota of evidence of that. Doesn't mean material he had might not have been and would be very valuable to hostile foreign governments. I don't see a way out of this for Trump except trying to make it go away, get people off onto other issues, and that will allow it to go away. And I think the Democrats need to be pressing this solidly.
Which they're doing, right, David? I mean, Ro Khanna, introduced that legislation to actually release the files, and the GOP voted it down.
Yeah. Well, that's because at the end of the day, they're going to protect Donald. And so long as they control the House and the Senate, they can protect him, which means it's going to matter a great deal who controls the House next year. And it's possible the Senate would change hands. And if that's the case for Trump, he's got really serious problems. I don't think you can convict him on impeachment. It requires 70 votes, but barring something unexpected happening between now and then. But you absolutely can lay out the record here on what's happening. One other thing to keep in mind about all of this, the administration and Pam Bondi in particular keep saying we don't have a list. That doesn't literally mean there is a document or a piece of paper that has the names of people on a list. You construct a list from things like manifests for his various jet aircraft, logs for who stayed, visitor logs, telephone logs. So don't be misled when they will at some point come back and say there is no list again, which is exactly what Pam Bondi said. That's like saying we don't have your pay stubs. If the IRS were to say that to you, we don't care. We know how much you got paid and how much was withheld from your check.
Yeah, I wanted to play something for you. I see this guy as a Trump surrogate, mostly, Dershowitz.
Yes.
He's a problematic figure in many ways. He's also a very smart guy, obviously, which makes some of what he says, he's represented, as you know, so many, including Jeffrey Epstein, makes so much of what he says a little tough sometimes to decode. I want to play a little bit of it, though, for you and just get your reaction. This is Alan Dershowitz talking about what you're speaking about, the existence of a list, a file, names, etc. Go ahead, Tony.
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them. From accusers that accuse Jeffrey, that accuse various people of having improper sex. And that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out. Now, of course, because I was the lawyer and I did all the investigations, I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court.
Yeah.
I see him as a surrogate, so I try to, allow for that in discounting whatever he has to say. I also see him as something of an Epstein insider, David. To be fair, he, along with Trump, they were with Epstein a lot. I mean, Trump and Epstein were a couple of, international playboys who were together all the time. I mean, a lot of the time. Sure. But Epstein also close to Dershowitz, certainly in terms of legal representation. Give me your thoughts sort of on what Dershowitz was saying.
Well, the most important thing he said, and it was very subtle, was he excluded Donald Trump from the list of people because he said no one currently in office. And this has been part of the effort to say these were Democrats. There are probably some Democrats in there. They're Republicans. I don't think they were picked for their connection to power. They're also trying to argue that Epstein was not blackmailing people. Epstein has no known expertise in finance. He had no track record in finance, and yet he ended up managing a large volume of money for several very wealthy people he drew into his circle. So I think it's not unreasonable to believe that what Epstein would do is he would get you in a compromising situation, and not in any confrontational way, but a very subtle business-like way, make it clear that you needed to have him manage some of your money. I would love to just see the track record on who deposited money with him, what the investment returns are, and what the withdrawals were on behalf of Epstein. Notice I said on behalf of him, because I'm sure he was very sophisticated about all of this. The royal family has essentially cut Prince Andrew out of the mix. To think that British intelligence isn't able to figure out what was going on here and whether his denials were credible would be foolish. Of course, they have figured that out. And that they have cut him out of the mix tells you that this is not some imaginary issue. And remember, we have a whole group of young women. At the time, some of them were 14 years old, who have come forward. They've been consistent in their stories. Julie Brown's reporting in the Miami Herald on this has been solid. All of it is held up to these tremendous attacks by people around Trump. Dershowitz is, as someone who, apart from being a professor at Harvard Law, represented people in some very famous criminal cases, has proven very adept at how to confuse people, how to lead them away from rather obvious facts, which is one of the key roles of criminal defense lawyers. That's your job, is to get your client off. So I think that what should happen is the administration should go to court and say, we want court approval to remove all of these records, all of the redactions, and put it out there. Now, Dershowitz does make one point, and that is that there are people in there who are being accused by someone else. Well, let's treat them in two categories. People who are in Epstein's own self-generated files, which brings us to my last point, which is one of the defenses being put up now is, well, it was really Obama and Clinton, that people working for them, who created these files. Biden's people created these files. Utter nonsense, and just a further effort to confuse the MAGArati, who are also the ignoranti of America.
That is absolutely exactly what's happening today. I mean, the day's special, political special of disinformation is exactly what you're saying, David, which is this entire thing was concocted by the Democrats, and they will try to find a way to tag the Democrats. Now, last thing on this, and then I want to move on to the immigration policies, which are increasingly shocking. But the last thing is that they have successfully, I mean, through sweat, through threat, or just charm from Trump, moved some of these influencers, MAGA influencers, off this subject, gotten them to kind of, nothing to see here this. It's remarkable the power of the White House and of Trump to get that to happen.
Well, all White Houses have a lot of power to get people to either bend to their will or back off. I mean, who wants to go get into a big fight with the President of the United States with the resources he has, particularly Donald, who has no compunctions about finding excuses to go after you? And there are lots of things our government can do to hobble your life and make it difficult. If that's what people are instructed to do. And remember, the studies by Milgram and Zimbardo and others show that somewhere between 10 and 20% of people will not just follow orders, but 80% roughly will just do what they're told to do. I'm deeply concerned about how this changes and the narrative. And I think the Democrats and the never MAGA Republicans, people like the Lincoln Project, really need to stay on this and have a disciplined message, just as they need to have with your previous guest about Medicaid and rural hospitals and Medicare and rural hospitals. They need to have a dedicated message, a tightly disciplined theme to keep pushing this issue and not letting it go away. Now, remember that the MAGA crowd, more than people in general, operates on a visceral level. These are not people who get paid to sit around and think about issues. So they can be moved, but you've got to have various outrages. One of the things the Democrats could do is get some of the women who haven't come forward publicly. Their names are in the record but redacted. Get some more of them to come forward. Put more information out there. Talk about Prince Andrew and the fact that the royal family has pushed him aside, very clearly done that. And then press also for the financial records, because the financial records are going to tell you, of course, he was running an extortion scheme.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it seems the Democrats are doing some of this. We'll see how it all games out. Yeah.
They are. They seem to be doing better on this. They've been flailing for a long time. This will not get them what they want. It will simply limit what Trump and his people can do. They still need to develop a message. In the words of my late brother, what have the Democrats done for me?
Right, right. Yeah, bold messages and bold plans are carrying the day. You can look at the mayoral race in New York to see that.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.